Hi everyone, I'm Stan, product manager here at Ellie, and today we are going to do a full product overview. So I'll show you how you can model, use the tool, and it's a quick guide to kind of show you what Ellie is all about. So the way we position Ellie is, while it is a data modeling tool at a core, is that it's a product design and collaboration platform for data teams. The idea here is that we want to build a data tool for everyone. So it's as easy to use as some of the more common collaboration tools like Miro or Visio or Lucidchart, something that anybody can use, business people, everybody, but also with the technical features that you would see in the data modeling tool, governance tool, and so on. It's easy to use, runs on the cloud. You can open it through your browser. You don't have to install anything, and you can work together on the same canvas. And the way we overall suggest our customers to approach data modeling is from two different sides at the same time. So what I mean by that is, on one side, yes, you can work with your domain experts, your business people, your product managers, and so on, to kind of define from the top down what sort of data models you need to build, agree on things, and create your conceptual models. But also on the other side, you could, for example, at first bring the information you already have into Ellie. So for example, if you have an existing data catalog with terms and definitions, you could bring them into Ellie as a glossary. And then when you model, you could actually use those predefined things as your entities in the model. You can also bring your existing schemas from different warehouses or source systems, right? So you can bring your tables and schemas as physical models into Ellie. And the reason we kind of suggest that you should approach modeling from these two sides is because you should, of course, design and imagine what you actually need, but also you should look at your reality, right? What actual data assets you have, what do things mean, and kind of use that as a foundation to build your models. Only then you're able to kind of find something that is very valuable for your business stakeholders, but also is realistic to execute. And as such, you can deliver business value. And overall, Ellie supports your full modeling workflow. You can start by gathering the business context and creating your conceptual models. You can then proceed to your logical models, where you would work further on the attributes. And then you can always create your physical models, which would most likely be warehouse specific. So you'd have specific constraints and so on. And at the end of the day, it can also generate the SQL code you need, which you can easily execute directly in the warehouse of your choice. And overall, we are trying to create a common understanding across your data workflows. Traditionally, data modeling has been kind of its own island, isolated, not connected to the rest of your data stack. Business people might be afraid of data modeling because it's very hard to use. And we're trying to change all of that. And the core pillars of how Ellie enables this are the following. One is the tool is super visual and super customizable, meaning that you as an enterprise can make it work exactly as you need, and your business stakeholders also won't be afraid of using it. It's super easy to start using. There's also a ton of integrations that we already have and we keep on building. So your modeling is not an isolated thing, but connects to the rest of your data stack seamlessly. We're building more and more AI features that I'll show a little bit today during our demos. And the idea is to kind of facilitate data modeling. There's a lot of work. You have to keep a lot of context in your head. With AI, we can make these things more seamless, fast, and easy. And of course, by making all the assets as reusable as possible. This is very important when you work on the enterprise scale, as you want to avoid duplication, confusion. You want to make sure that people reuse assets that already exist. And Ellie is all about that. And here's an example workflow that you could have in Ellie. So for example, if you're using a data catalog like Colibra, we have an existing integration, so you could easily connect the tools together and sync definitions across the tools. If you have an existing source system, let's say it's SAP or Oracle system, you could bring the existing tables you already have in those source systems into Ellie. This is very helpful because then you can do source to target mapping. You can easily identify what assets you have and find them using our source navigator. It's an AI assisted feature I'll show you in a bit. And basically you have the information of what data you have at hand. And inside of Ellie, you can of course do all the modeling, the conceptual, logical, physical. And when you're done, you can easily push whatever you end up building into your version control tool of choice, for example, Azure DevOps. And then a data engineer, for example, could pick that up and actually take your DDL, so create table statement, and deploy it to the warehouse of choice, for example, Snowflake. But what often happens during that process is they might make some changes, adjustments, and your initial design and the actual implementation might be a bit different. Well, we got you. So once something is deployed to Snowflake, you can always reverse engineer it back into Ellie. And in that case, you will have both your original design or your actual implementation model in one tool, which you can easily compare then later. And overall, Ellie has a ton of different integrations. So we connect to different data catalogs like Colibra and Purview. We support different data engineering workflows with tools like dbt, Warescape, Data Vault Builder, and so on. We connect to all the modern warehouses like Fabric, Databricks, Snowflake, and so on. There are connectors to different version control tools like DevOps and GitHub. And overall, we can also connect to over 150 different source systems for our partnership with CData. So you can connect to systems like Oracle systems, SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and basically most of the systems that are there and are used by enterprises. So without further ado, let's jump into the actual demo of the tool and I'll show you what Ellie is all about. So this is my Acme Inc. environment and I'm using it to basically show you all the things you can do in Ellie. So the first thing I did when I created this environment, I organized my folders. So I have my personal folder, which is basically a sandbox where I can do anything I want. It can be a bit messy because it's my own environment. It doesn't affect anything else. And every user in Ellie has their own personal folder. And then we also have the organization folder. And this is your organization, right? So people can model together. You can have your enterprise models here and so on. And inside the organization folder, you can structure your work the way you would want. So for example, here I have my enterprise glossary, I have my enterprise models, and I've created different domains. So I'm structuring work by domains. We see our customers often also do their work by lines of business, projects, and so on. But this is a typical example. You have your enterprise definitions, and then you have your domains, so you can have definitions for each domain as well. And if I open my sales and marketing folder, you can see that I have two subfolders, so subdomains, marketing and sales. I have some sales and marketing specific models and even its own glossary, because sometimes you might have different definitions for what is a customer in a specific domain versus your enterprise definition. Inside my subfolders, I can create additional subfolders, like I have a data product specific subfolder. And the cool part about all these folders is that you can restrict who can edit assets within them. So you can always govern things and make sure that only the right people can edit definitions and models in your Ellie environment. So as you can see, in Ellie, you can really organize your work for your enterprise needs. You can control who has write access. You can organize your work across different domains. You can create sub-glossaries for different folders. So it kind of gives you a lot of power for your enterprise workflows. But how do the models themselves actually look? Well, let's open one of the models. So I'm going to open a customer and sales orders model. And this is our conceptual model in Canvas. So the idea of the canvas is to keep it as simple as possible. All we have here are lines and boxes, right? We have our entities and we have our relationships. Relationships can have descriptions. You can add cardinalities like one-to-one, one-to-many, and so on. And then you can also color code your entities, and these are basically entity types. So master, contract, transaction. In our Data Vault use cases, we see our customers use it to define hubs, links, satellites, and so on. And that's kind of the idea of this canvas, to keep it simple. But the cool part about this is that in collaboration tools, this would actually be just boxes, right? In Ellie, these are actual glossary terms, and they are reusable. So if I click on a customer entity, for example, we can see that we have a description of what is a customer. We have a lot of different metadata, which you can always customize for your enterprise needs. Already on the conceptual entity level, you can add attributes. And you can basically customize this object as much as you want. And before I jump to the relationships, I'm going to go back to the model and just show you how you actually add an entity to the model. It's as easy as pressing this plus button. And then let's say I want to add a bank entity. What you'll notice is the system will actually check, are there any existing terms that are related to the bank that could be reused? And here we can see that the organization already has a bank entity. So I don't need to actually create anything. I'm actually reusing an existing asset, which is super powerful when you're working across the enterprise. I'm going to delete it quickly, and let's go back to our customer entity. Let me open the relationships tab. And the powerful part of Ellie is that because you always reuse your entities, you actually slowly create relationships across all your models, right? Because we can see that the customer entity is used in 5 different models in this Acme Inc. environment. And here are all the relationships it has across the models. What this allows you to do in the future is to connect models together, and also lets you model in smaller chunks. You don't have to create one huge model. You can just model one small piece at a time and later connect them together. That lineage already exists, so the relationships across models through the entities, and it is super powerful. And if I go back to my canvas, as said, the idea is to keep it as simple as possible on the conceptual layer, but there are some additional features as well. For example, you could add groups, which would let you kind of group a set of entities together. You can also add comments. So we support full collaboration. For example, I can attach a comment to a customer entity, tag a person, and ask, is this the right entity? And the person can then receive the notification, see that, okay, maybe there's something has to be done, and this is like a common thread. You can always resolve the thread, and so on. All of our assets in Ellie also support version control. So all the models have different versions, so you can always go back and see the previous version of the model. You can always restore it, and this kind of makes you feel safe as an enterprise because you can always recover if anything was done wrong. You can see the evolution of a model and so on. And the same functionality also exists in our entities. So all our entities have version history as well. So you can always revert back to the previous versions of the definitions and so on. So once you're done with your conceptual modeling activity, you would have a model like this customers and sales order model. This is a simple model just for the demo. And you could then move to creating a logical model, right? So how do you do that? You could create it from scratch, of course, but in Ellie, we have this neat feature called convert model. And let's say I'm going to create my logical model. Because this is a demo, I'm going to save it in my personal folder because I don't want to pollute the main environment. And I'm going to add a unique name, demo model. I'm now going to convert the model. And voila, my logical model is now here. And what has happened during this process is all the attributes that existed in our conceptual entities were automatically brought here. We added all the relationships. There's also now lineage to our glossary terms. So for example, we know that the customer logical entity is linked to the customer conceptual entity and so on. And the idea of the logical layer overall is that it has all the same functionality that you would have in the conceptual layer, but additionally, you would kind of start working more on your attributes. So you would add any additional attributes that are missing. Let's say a customer must have a surname. It should be a varchar, and I'm going to save it. So you could add these additional attributes, or if you have a many-to-many relationship, you could also add bridge tables and so on. The idea of the logical canvas, as I mentioned, is that you kind of further work on your attributes without yet jumping into the technicalities that would be maybe warehouse specific. And when you're done working with your logical model, you can then move on to building your physical model, right? So we'll be building a model specifically for some warehouse. So I am going to create a model. For now, I'll save it in my personal folder. Again, I'm using the convert functionality because it is super neat. This way, all the information is transferred to my physical layer model. And here I would probably first start by defining my database engine. Let's say in this case, we'll use Fabric Lakehouse. I would then start defining the warehouse specific data types. If I need any changes, maybe add constraints and so on. And I would also define attribute level relationships. So for example, order ID PK in our sales order should be FK in the sales order row table. And essentially the idea is that in this canvas, you would finalize all your relationships, define all your warehouse specific constraints, data types, and so on. And then we could even generate SQL code for you. So I'm going to open another model, which is already finalized version of this model. So I'm going to go to my sales and marketing and open the customers and sales model. And as you can see, all the relationships now are finalized. So there's no warnings. Usually if it's red or yellow color, there's like some issue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my model information. Here I've already set my database engine as Fabric Lakehouse. And what it allows me to do is basically based on this physical model, I can now generate a DDL, so a create table statement that I could then take to my Fabric and create this schema in my environment. So as you can see, we now have the create table statements defined. And the next thing I could do is I could just copy this and, open a worksheet in my warehouse and create it that way. Or you can also deploy this model to your Git versioning tool. For example, here I will push it to Azure DevOps. So I'm going to select my Azure DevOps connection. I will select the branch. I know it's pretty bad, but I'm going to use main, and I will call the file product demo of Ellie. I'll add a commit message that this is a demo, and I'm going to press push. And now I'm going to go and quickly check in my Azure DevOps. I'm going to refresh the page if the SQL code has been pushed. So we can see that the product demo of Ellie SQL is now here. And then the usual workflow is that once you push it to your Git versioning tool, maybe a data engineer will pick it up, check, make any changes, and actually deploy it to the warehouse. And this is a very typical approach how our customers use Ellie to create conceptual, logical, and physical models. This is more of a top-down demo today, but you can use Ellie in many other forms as well. One of the new things that we're introducing to our customers is the source navigator. The idea of this workflow is that, okay, in Ellie, you can do all the top-down design you would want. You can create your conceptual, logical, and physical models. You can even deploy the schemas into the warehouse of your choice. But do you actually have the data? Where does it reside? How do you do that source to target mapping and so on? Well, we have a solution. And the idea is that on one side, you can gather the requirements, create your models. And on the other side, you can connect your source systems to Ellie. We will then document all the tables you have across different systems. And using AI, we're also able to generate synthetic metadata, basically defining how every table, all the attributes within these tables could be used for different applications. Based on all of this information, we built quite a complex search tool, AI-assisted search tool that can basically find relevant tables based on your use case. So for example, if you would create a sales operation model, the system could kind of check the entities you have in the model, the attributes you define, and basically look across the different systems. What are the possible candidates for tables or attributes that you could bring or connect to your model entities? And let me show you how that works in practice. So I'm going to go back to my Ellie environment, and here I have a sources tab. Within it, I have connected a couple of source systems. For example, here I have connected the HubSpot CRM system, which is our own internal CRM. And I have also connected our Postgres, which is our internal database that we use to power the Ellie, the tool itself. And every time you bring a new source table to our system, we can generate the synthetic metadata, as I mentioned. So how it works in practice is that if I go, for example, to my entities table, you will see that for every single table, we generate all sorts of things. Every time something is AI generated, there will always be an icon saying that this was AI generated, of course. And what we do is we generate a human readable table name, so a semantic table name. Some table names can be very complex. We also create a table description. We add tags for your table. We create column row descriptions, so every attribute has a description on how it can be used. And then we also create logical groups that basically help you identify how maybe you could split the table, normalize it further, and so on. And what this all lets you do is basically, as I mentioned, find the relevant tables. So if I'm going to go to my source navigator, I can then start a conversation with my AI. And what you can do here is you could, for example, paste a model, and the AI will basically find the relevant tables that you could link to your model. But you can also ask even more simple data discovery questions like, I want to see how many customers churned in the last 90 days. And what the AI will do is now it will kind of browse through all the source tables that I have and will find me the relevant ones for this query. As I mentioned, you can use it in many ways. You can just literally send a link to your model and it will find the relevant source tables to link to your entities, but it can also just answer to basic queries like this one. And what we can see here, the system has found a couple of relevant tables. For example, here I can see the companies table from my HubSpot CRM. I actually know that this is the most relevant one, but what you will notice is that it kind of gives you a reason why these tables are relevant and also what are the most important attributes. This is just one of the use cases I wanted to show you around the AI capabilities we're building in Ellie, and there's way more that is coming that we have, and you can check out our separate videos on that. The point is that Ellie is more than just like a typical modeling tool, right? It's AI assisted, it's connected to all the systems you might want, whether it's Git or data catalogs or your warehouses and so on. And it is truly a modern tool that turns data modeling into an enterprise practice. I hope you enjoyed this demo, and if you have any questions and you want to learn more about Ellie, check out our other videos or reach out to our sales team and they'll be happy to tell you more. I'm Dmitriev, product manager here at Ellie, and see you next time.